Now, recording.
Recording in progress. I am a male addict in recovery and have been sober since discovery in February. I have a full daily recovery schedule. In my group's meetings and therapy, recently attachment theory has been mentioned. Can you please explain this? Can you also please explain Thanos so I can work it correctly? Okay, so let's start with attachment.
Okay, and I'm
theory.
sitting here desperately looking up Thanos because I know what
It's
it
a
is. But I can't
check-in. Yeah, it's the check-in. It's I will look up what it means. Somebody will
Okay,
probably throw it in
so
the
I'll let
chat.
you take number
But let's
two.
start with what the
Okay,
attachment theory
so
is.
this is a very basic understanding of how human beings work, and it's also true that the way we learn to build, to be safe in intimacy and to turn to other people for help is in the first 3 years of life. We learn something, what we call basic trust. And basic trust is earned by the caregivers when I feel that no matter what I do, you're going to respond to me. So Dr. Spock was wrong. The more frequently you respond to a child, whether they're crying or you pick them up and say coochie coochie coo, or the more you engage them, the healthier it is, the more attached they are, especially if they call out to you. They need to learn that if I call out, someone will be there. And what happens is over time, that becomes part of their belief system. So addicts have not had that experience. They lack trust. And many of us addicts, will say, well, why call somebody for help when I can just drink? Why reach out to another person on a bad day when I can go have sex with a stranger? So we didn't gain the kind of attachment that leaves us trusting that others will support us, help us, and respond to us. I grew up in an environment with a lot of craziness. My mother was mentally ill, and most of what was going on was about my parents and what their needs were. What I didn't learn was my own importance in that environment. And while I don't need you to pay attention to me every minute when I'm 40, I do need you to pay attention to me all the time when I'm 4. And what happens is people come out of those environments and they never really learn the meaning of others comforting me, others soothing me. And especially if I let you know I need something, you will respond to me. What I learned in my environment is you're on your own. If bad things happen, you need to go into fantasy or disappear in a book or something because no one's going to make it better. And you need to learn how to make yourself feel better on your own because people are going to not be available or yell at you. And why would you want to reach out hoping for support and have no one show up? Because I got to tell you, if you reach out for love and support and no one shows up a couple of times, if you're a smart kid, you say, what's wrong with this scenario that I hurt so much? Oh, I get it. It's that I'm reaching out. And if I just didn't reach out, I wouldn't hurt. And so young children, as they do, think it's their fault. So we walk around as addicts throughout life thinking, I'm not going to reach out. What's the point of reaching out? I better do this on my own. The problem is that human beings are not meant to comfort, soothe, and stabilize themselves on their own. That's why it's so important for us to be in pair bonds and community so that we can support each other. Addicts tend to have attachment issues, and you see this because they don't turn to people, or the people they turn to are anonymous or unavailable, or they don't turn to meaningful support. I'll give you one more example. When my dog passed away, and I had a wonderful dog, 10 minutes, I had an 180-pound dog. So when he left, you missed him. You couldn't help but notice. And I was very, very sad. And I went on Facebook and I said, here's a picture of my dog and love my dog. And what happened was people came back to me and they said, oh, I'm so sorry. That must be difficult. I lost my dog last year. I saw you guys together. Did that take away my sadness? No, I still missed my dog. But there was something grounding, stabilizing, that I knew I wasn't alone, that other people did come and soothe me. And while they couldn't take away my pain, I wasn't alone. And that is what attachment does. It leaves within me this belief that if I let other people know what's going on with me, they will respond and they will make me feel better. Addicts don't act that way. They look for behaviors and substances to make themselves feel better because they're not deeply attached to people. How's that? Is that a good one? But what is Thanos? Can you help with that one?
I can, but I want to tag on to what you're saying too. So Troy Love does extraordinary work on attachment style and wounds, and I posted in the chat both some information on we literally just talked about this stuff on last Wednesday on the webinar. So I shared the link to go to the previously recorded. He does a men's group every Friday on sexandrelationshiphealing.com.
Wait, Tammy, can you point to your right when you say that, so you can say, oh, sex and relationship healing is right behind me. No, that's your, okay.
Well, yeah,
see,
they're backwards. So, yeah.
So there it is, by the way, just in case.
So on sexandrelationshiphealing.com, you will find Troy Love does alternating Thursdays for betrayed partners. He does attachment wounds, betrayal wounds, absolutely. But, neglect, abandonment, whatever. But for men on Fridays, every Friday, he does a drop-in group. So these are safe places where you can go talk to him. He's got a Finding Peace workbook, lots of resources. This has been so useful, even, for me to be able to identify. Like a couple months ago, I was sharing my abandonment wound got poked like completely. And I was like, oh, that's my abandonment wound. And rather than going, well, I was able to go, that's my abandonment wound. What do I need to do to take care of it? And like Dr. Rob was just saying, I needed to connect with people. I needed to do what I needed to do to take care of myself. Me thinking about it and figuring it out on my own. I mean, I was able to name it, which was helpful, but we heal in community. And so we have to learn to attach. I get calls all the time. I had 2 of them today where it was somebody, and I could just tell that they were just going to think about all of this and decide on their own and everything. And I thought, call me back in 6 months because it's going to be just as bad. So, so really, please lean into. And I hear that you've got a recovery group. I think you're muted, Dr. Rob, but it says you're still muted. You're still.
I'm talking to my husband who just walked away. That's why I wanted to. It's like, welcome home. Nice to see you. He's, leave the room, so sorry.
Okay. That's all good. But anyway, so, and then Thanos. So I put in the chat, it is feelings. Share with your partner a feeling you have. You may use a list of feelings if it would help you to identify them. Early on in recovery, super helpful to have the chart. Affirmations. Affirm your partner for something he or she has done. Needs. State a need you have today, not necessarily one that will be met by your partner. So remember that it isn't like you're asking them just to show up and take care of you. Ownership. Take responsibility and apologize for something you have said or done. Struggles. Sobriety. Here you have an opportunity to tell your partner the status of your struggles, sexual sobriety recovery today, sobriety date, general struggles, etc. Be specific, but not graphic. So that is on the Hope Counseling Center. Garrett Irby, who is in Dr. Rob's peer group, is a big person in the Thanos daily check-in. Yes, keep it simple, but do those things. And that's a guide for how to do a check-in. Now you're muted.
If you could just go through FANOS, just that part, can you?
I did. It's in the chat.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yes. Feelings, affirmations, needs, ownership, and struggles or sobriety. So, yeah. So, but it's in the chat. Feel free to take a snapshot of it if you're in the group, or just use FANOS and Google search it and you'll come up with that. So, okay. Next question. I put in the answer. Hello, Dr. Rob. Is there a significant overlap between sex addict population and pick artists who pursue sex from women? Are they dealing with similar psychological issues? Came across a book, No More Nice Guys, and it echoes similar behavior as sex addicts, like compulsive sex, porn-induced erectile dysfunction, and so on. Thanks.
What is a pick artist? I'm sorry.
I don't know.
It's probably a misspelling, my guess is.
Okay. I don't know that.
But I don't know
who pursue sex from women. So I don't know.
Okay, I can. I mean, that is the sort of key point of this question. So maybe if they write in the chat, here's what a pick artist, whatever. We'll
thank you. Because
pick up. Oh, someone wrote that.
Oh, okay. Well, now does that make more sense?
Okay. So it's funny because I just did this podcast and the question came up, what's the difference between someone who cheats and someone who's a sex addict? And, I wrote about this a lot in Out of the Doghouse because there is a significant difference. But I had to think a lot about what do you call, like, what's wrong with someone who cheats? What do you, I know what you call a sex addict. They have an addiction, they have an attachment, I know what's up with sex addicts. But what is a cheater? Why do they cheat? And the the definition, or the way I think about it, is that people who cheat lack emotional maturity. And I'll tell you what emotional maturity is in a relationship. Wherever I go in the world, I'm thinking about not just me, but you. I've been married for 20 years. When I go to, this is absolutely true. When I go to Macy's to buy a shirt for myself, I'm always thinking to myself, gee, would my husband like that shirt? Would they, what about my sister? So I have people in mind that never leave me, because where I go, they are with me. So people who are pickup artists are immature because well, if they're single, if they're in a relationship, because they're basically disregarding the most important lesson of being in a relationship, which is, I don't think of myself first in any of the decisions I make. I think of us first. And that is mature. That is mature we call it having someone in mind. So when I go to do things for work, for example, I have Tammy in mind. Do I need to figure this out on my own, or do I need to talk to Tammy about it? Or I don't make decisions by myself. I do it. I mean, I might, but if it occurs to me that this might not be good for my working relationship with Tammy, then I either don't do it or I reach out to her. I don't just think I'll go off by myself and do whatever. That is immaturity. And especially like, oh, well, if she doesn't know, it'll be fine. That's immaturity. So the way I think, now I don't know what a pickup artist is. To me, that's a sort of, I think of a 70s lounge bar with, with with hair and shirts open and, all that stuff. But
Big gold
someone who,
chain.
right. I mean, also, I think the other word for mature is needful. I look like I have it together, but I'm actually desperately seeking someone to comfort me, make me feel better, make me feel important. So I don't know what a pickup artist, what that means or where they're coming from, but sex addicts universally have consequences to our lives that reduce the functioning of our life. So I don't know if picking someone up occasionally or regularly is an addiction. That depends on the person. But I can tell you, the person who's picking people up who's married, the person who's picking people up at work, the person who's undermining, the person who spends 6 hours picking people up when they should be home with their kids, when your sexual or drinking or gambling behavior, whatever it is, starts to interfere with the things that you value, the things that you know are important on some level, that's addiction. Especially if you've been caught, because you would think, well, if I got in trouble for this, I'm not going to do it again. That's not how addicts think. Addicts think, how can I do this and not get caught? I'll give you a quick example. I had a guy had a porn problem. His wife was very angry about this. It didn't go again with her beliefs, her morals. She didn't know he was doing it. So he said, oh, okay, I understand that bothers you. And then he would stay an hour late at work every day to look at the porn. And that wasn't really dealing with the issue. That wasn't keeping his partner in mind. That wasn't mature. That was, how can I just ignore that and go over here and do what I want? I don't think that healthy people think that way. At least not so frequently that we end up screwing up our lives.
So
Tammy, did you?
well, no, great. On the Out of the Doghouse, we will have a work group starting on that particular topic. Watch for the details, or should be January, but more will be revealed. So on the seekingintegrity.com site. So wait, yes, this one on seekingintegrity.com. Did I get it the right direction? I did.
Well, as a matter of fact, I spent my Thanksgiving holiday working on what is going to be the Doghouse series.
Fantastic.
And I'm excited about it
yeah.
because teaching men what women go through when they're cheated on and how to repair that is something most men have no idea how to do. So that's what I hope to do, is teach them what empathy is, what compassion is, what thinking of your partner first looks like. And that's what I'm looking forward to that course, actually.
Okay, so the next one, formal disclosure, was October 8th. How long should I wait for my SA husband to really get going on recovery work? He has stopped the behaviors, porn, massage, prostitutes, but seems to be very slow on meetings and other work. He sees his CSAT once a week. I'm getting frustrated waiting for him to embrace the recovery process and do things to rebuild trust.
Okay, so Tammy, I want you to start with this one because you get so many phone calls.
I get so many phone calls, but I get I feel it in my body because I get so frustrated. It's like, he should have been doing this stuff before disclosure. I'm sorry. You like all of, he should be on the recovery path. So, and he's making it harder for himself. You don't get the benefits of being in recovery when you're sitting on the fence and going. There's a lot of great CSAT therapists, but going to see a CSAT once a week for 50 minutes, and that's all you do. How are you going to deal with things that are decades old? Like Dr. Rob was talking about, like, this is old stuff. He learned as a child that the world wasn't safe. You're looking at decades old stuff, and you're going to go change things in 50 minutes once a week. He stopped the behavior. That's the beginning. That's
Well,
addressing the
that's
symptom,
what
and
he's
that's
saying.
good. Well,
That's what
and
he's
I kind
saying.
of wondered about that too. But anyway, but that's abstinence. That is not recovery. So if I mentioned earlier, we've got the couples healing from a betrayal workshop that will start again probably in January. But it's like, Dr. Rob just talked about, keeping the other person in mind. What do you need to do? I don't blame you for being frustrated. I mean, honest to goodness, I just absolutely don't blame you for being frustrated. So what do you need to do to set a healthy boundary for you? If he's not showing up, I mean, therapeutic separation. Like, what do you need to do until he steps into doing what you need to see him do to rebuild trust? That's my thought.
Yeah, I would add just a little bit to that. I would say that if my partner was seeing a CSAT once a week, or someone who really understood sex addiction, and I felt they were not doing not going to meet some basic stuff, not going to meetings, not what else they stopped doing, other work like workbooks or going to some of the classes or
The
whatever.
drop-in groups, yeah.
Right. I would probably call the CSAT and say, I am really uncomfortable. I don't mean to interfere with the therapy, but I got to tell you, maybe there are things you're not hearing about. Not like a desperate person who is, but really as a thoughtful, I don't know what to do about this because I feel like I'm getting information that doesn't make me feel safe. And, would I be able to come to a session with you guys and talk about my concerns? Could I drop you a note that you could read in therapy that he could hear? Ultimately, the answer to the question, how long should I wait, is not more than 5 minutes. Because if this person wants to, I don't think that they understand what they have to lose. Tammy, I was doing again this podcast, I was just like talking for an hour, so it's on my mind. One of the things that I said was, I think, and I don't mean to be insulting, but I think women are far too easy on us guys. I think you ladies are far too willing, even though we've cheated on you, to take us back in your beds, take us back in your rooms, let us stay in the house. I mean, and one of the things I was talking about is there's not a lot an addict really responds to toward change. And I'll give you an example. Tammy knows I've been doing this work for 25 years as a licensed person. And I have, of all the people I've seen come into treatment, and I'm talking about 900 people that I've seen come into treatment over the years, 95% of them came in because a spouse said, I'm not putting up with this anymore. 5% of 1,000 people came in because they wanted to be better people. Now, every addict I work with when I start treatment says, oh, I'm here because I want to be a better person. But then I say, well, didn't you want to be a better person 3 years ago when you were seeing sex workers 3 times a week? Why are you here now if you just to be a better person? And well, my spouse found out, well, this happened at work. So until there are consequences of some kind, addicts will continue doing what they want. And our greatest fear, because of attachment issues, is abandonment. It is without question our greatest fear. You see these intervention shows, you see the issue that drives someone to treatment is the fear of the loss of a relationship. I got to tell you folks that the thing that brought me into the field of psychology and then later addiction was that people were dying of AIDS and HIV, and I wanted to help with that. And I thought that I would have a practice full of people with, gay men or people struggling with HIV and all that. I had a practice full of, as I still do, of men who had cheated on their wives, and their wives said, I'm done, I'm not putting up with this anymore. And they're looking at losing everything. And so they decide to come in. Inevitably, I talk to someone, well, I want to be a better person, I want to be a better father. Yeah, but why are you here? Well, because I got in trouble. So if you're not getting trouble at work and if you're able to pull it off elsewhere, I think spouses have an obligation to themselves to say, I don't want any more lying. I don't want any more pain. And I'm not going to drive you. Well, this is the other piece. I'm sorry. As a spouse, I'm not locking the bedroom door. I'm not shoving you out because I hope it will make a difference in what you're doing. Whether you get well or not, that's up to you. But I am going to get you out of my bed and lock the door because I deserve to be treated with respect and dignity. And if I'm not being respected or given dignity, then I don't want you in my bed. And it just so happens that that's the thing that often drives people into treatment. So it's kind of a win-win. And by the way, if you tell that person to leave and they just continue what they're doing and they're giving you information, which is you are not important enough for me to get well. And this family is not as important as my behavior. And that's when you call the lawyers because you have to protect yourself and your family. So anyway, I don't mean to go off the deep end, but I really would appreciate if you spouses would set more firm boundaries. Not I'm leaving you, but you don't have the privileges in this home that you had when we were equal. Because now we're not equal. You've hurt me and you're one down. To earn your way back means being trustworthy, going to those meetings, doing that work, and not saying to my spouse, oh, do I have to go to another one of those therapy sessions? But just going and being grateful that you can. So anyway, I'm probably ranting, Tammy, but I do want to encourage people who are being hurt to say, I don't want to be hurt anymore. And whatever that means for me, I might have taken action. I don't want to kick them out, but I don't want to hurt anymore. So should we
So
keep moving?
really well said, but I have to add two things. One is two things that break my heart. One, when a partner calls and she's typically but is sharing, how painful all of this is. And then I start giving resources and she says, oh, my husband won't do that. Like it's an automatic, oh, my husband won't do that. Today I had somebody who was, addict. Oh, I've hurt my family. I'm willing to do anything. And as soon as I start giving resources, you know what I get? A whole bunch of excuses. I shut them down. I said, all I hear are excuses. So, call me in 6 months or whatever. But it breaks my heart because there's help. There's an opportunity to change. There's an opportunity to be connected on a real and meaningful basis. And people just automatically go to the, oh no, oh, they won't do that. And it breaks my heart. So, okay.
Well, probably because they've asked them a bunch of times and they've said no, but there's no, and I'll just say this to all of you because it's a therapy thing. If you tell someone you love that you're leaving, you better leave if something goes bad, because if they go back to their behavior and affairs and you don't leave, you're giving them a very clear message, which says you can do what you want. And what I say doesn't have any meaning. So please don't tell us you're going to leave us unless you are, because all we need to learn is that your word does not have meaning and we will dance around you forever because we know we can, like a child, we can get away with it. I took the cookies out of the cookie jar and mom said, that wasn't a good idea, but doesn't stop me from having cookies for dessert. I didn't learn anything, so anyway, that's
okay.
a little bit of that.
Next question. Is it possible to change a narcissist when they have been like this for many, many years?
I don't know, Tammy, have I changed in the 10 years that you've known me?
Yes.
What's changed about me? Don't say anything mean.
No, no, I think, so first of all, it depends. Everybody, well, not everybody, often people label an addict as a narcissist, and absolutely an active addiction. We are all narcissists, doesn't matter which form of addiction you're struggling with. So getting into recovery can change things, but someone who identifies, narcissistic personality disorder or a true narcissist, yeah, Rob was talking about going shopping and he's thinking about his husband. Trust me, I didn't know him in active addiction, but I've heard enough of what of his shares that I'm going like, he didn't probably care about anybody's unless there was something in it for you.
Unless I was in trouble.
Well, yes. So then it was something in it for you, like it was going to get you out of trouble, or you wanted that relationship, so therefore you would, whatever. So if there was an ulterior motive for whatever, but when he's just thinking about other people, oh, I would, I want to get that shirt for my husband. That's very different. That's a different place than somebody it's just all about me. So, agree?
Yeah, I would say that I will always be a narcissist. I will always want the attention. I will always think I'm right. I will always respond badly to criticism. I will often see you as on my side or not, rather than down the middle. So I have traits because number one is genetic. You should have seen my mom. And number two, I mean, she was very self-invested. Nice lady, but very self-invested. And the other thing is the way I was raised. You know what? It would be absolutely impossible for me to not have those traits based on how I was treated as a child. But I know they're not right. So let me tell you where I've gotten to. After 23 years of therapy, I know that I am this way. And I know that I will do things. For example, I might say something mean to someone. I don't mean to be mean. It's just that color looks terrible on them and I think they should know, and they feel insulted. What I have learned is that I can say insulting things to people, but I can also go back and think that wasn't very nice and go back and apologize. Before, I just thought, well, they must have wanted to know that that was an ugly shirt. And why are they upset that I said it? I mean, a therapist said to me once, you know, a lot of the things you say are accurate and useful. It's just that nobody wants to hear them. And Tammy likes that. But the point is that I will not get rid of these traits. The volume has been turned down because I've had a lot of losses because of my narcissism. And so I have learned the hard way how to act, how to treat people. But is it gone? Trust me, Tammy will tell you it's not gone. But I can, if we have a disagreement and she feels I was all, you know, all about me, she can say to me now, you know, I don't think that you considered who and that about this. And I can say, huh, I guess you're right. Before I never would have said that. I would have just said, leave me alone, or that's not what I'm doing, or it's something about them. I can hear it now because I own it now. Is it going to go away? No. Can I learn to treat people differently? Absolutely. And most of all, I can know enough about myself to say, wow, that's not a healthy way of reacting. Let me try to do it differently. And before I just acted. Also, I would say, just to say it, I've worked in the field for 25 years. Narcissists, the kind that are diagnosed, where, you know, you have what they call a narcissistic personality disorder, they're rare. I have only run like sociopaths, people, borderlines. They're not that common, but really the full-on pathology. But people who are wounded will show traits. And it's easy to say, oh, they're so this, or oh, they're so that. Well, we have traits, but we can work on that. I can tell you that someone who is absolutely narcissistic would have no interest in changing, would have no interest in getting better, would have no interest in trying to heal a relationship because it's not my fault. It's your fault. So yes, we can change. And yes, we can open up our worlds. And no, I don't think narcissist is the worst label in the world. I do think, though, we have compassion and empathy to work on. And we can, and we do.
So I want to go back to, if it's because of addiction, there is great hope. I mean, addicts can learn to be very connected, and it really shifts. We, like Dr. Rob shared earlier, we learn to shift in community. We learn to care about what other people are thinking and doing. You know, so if it is a straight narcissistic personality disorder and you didn't just label it because Google doctor told you to, you know, I mean, that really requires, you know, the right person to diagnose, you know. So I think it really needs to look at what's causing it, you know, what does it stem from? So okay, next question. When I discovered my husband's addiction, he was watching incest porn, also at the same time calling, texting my cousin's wife and daughter. I believe he was acting out, or at least trying to act out, what he was watching. Your thoughts? Of course, he says that wasn't the case. Of course.
Well, first of all, I'm very sad for you that there are many issues that I hear about that worry spouses. You know, you had sex without protection and then you came home to me. You had an affair and you gave that person money. You got arrested for seeing sex workers. You know, all of those things are horrifying and difficult. But the idea that you are looking at something that is so heinous, that is so scary, I'm deeply concerned. And so I have had a patient recently who was doing things like this, going into family members' apartments and watching, you know, incest porn and all that stuff. And I think it is a much more difficult issue than you're describing. I would be deeply concerned. I would be cautious. I'm not saying this person's into children, although I would wonder how old your cousin's daughter is. Um, and I agree with you. I don't know if he was acting out, but there was something in his head about, play with this, see where it goes. So to me, I think that the two of you should go to an extremely well-trained therapist and sit down and talk about this. And I mean someone who knows their stuff. Your average therapist, well, people look at everything, and you need someone like we would recommend. And I say that because Tammy and I have been doing this for 20 years. We know we either trained or worked with trainings with almost everyone who's licensed out there. So we don't get kickbacks, but Tammy does make referrals because I believe that she really knows who she's talking about. And it is TAMI at seekingintegrity.com. But I don't believe him, because when you're looking at incest porn, all bets are off about it's like looking at child porn. You may say, I'm absolutely not interested. I would never want. I'm sorry, but if we have kids, and I may not be worried about the kids, but I might be worried about the babysitter. So this is very serious. I think this goes beyond, do I believe him or not? I think this goes into, I am so disturbed about this that I want us to sit down with a professional who knows what they're doing and talk about it. This is not minor. This is one of those major ones. And I'm sorry. And especially if he's a sex addict, that means we are impulsive and we do things without thinking. And that's not fine, but it's doesn't cause the same harm if I impulsively look at porn in a way that you might run into. However, if I impulsively try to initiate an incestuous relationship, that's much more serious and something that I would want to tend to right away.
And even within the qualified professionals, that's a different level. I
Specialty.
Yeah, that is. So I want you to, I do get, calls about that. So, okay, next question. Dr. Rob, I'm the betrayed partner. I lost a lot, my partner, my home, our future together, and I'm going through grief. I'm doing self-care and I have a lot of support. Can you comment on forgiveness and the grief process? Any advice for getting through those aspects of this experience?
Well, there's a lot of grieving here. You've lost your whole life. As adults, our home, our partners, our futures. That's so. All I can say to you is to be kind with yourself about the grief, because it's going to be a while. And I really caution you to be kind to yourself about this issue of remorse. Because one of the hardest things, I think, when you're grieving is when you start saying, I wish I'd done it this way. I wish I'd done it that way. I wish I'd said this. Maybe if I'd done this, if this was going to happen, this was going to happen. It had nothing to do with what you said or did. If I love you and I'm pissed at you, I love you and I'm pissed at you, but I don't destroy our lives. That means I was going to destroy our lives anyway. As far as forgiveness, a couple of things. Number one, well, I was in therapy years and years ago. I don't know if I ever told you this, Tammy. And one of the clients in that therapy group, it wasn't me, but I was in the group, said, I was incested by a parent. And I'm wondering how I can come to forgiveness. And what the therapist said is, that person absolutely deserves forgiveness, but you may not be the one who has to give it to them. And we don't have to forgive everyone and everything. What we can do is find forgiveness within ourselves for having walked through that experience. But you may never speak to him again because of what he's done, and I could understand that. However, I have something interesting. Tammy and I have talked about this. I wanted to do a forgiveness course because forgiveness is fascinating, at least to me, because there are many, you may not know this, there are lots of books on grief, but there are also lots of books about forgiveness. And it's fascinating to me as a therapist because forgiveness isn't just, I forgive you. It's different stages of a long process like grief. In grief, we bargain, we get angry, and then we get depressed, and then we go back to being in shock. And there are all these stages that we go in and out of. And there are also stages of forgiveness. And what I would really encourage you to do, honestly, is go get a book or go online and find out about the stages of forgiveness. See where you are in that process. Maybe you're at the very beginning. Maybe you haven't started. Maybe you're further along than you think. I don't know. But I think when I can see myself and where I kind of fit in, it makes it a lot easier for me to look ahead at how I might get to where I want to get to. So I will say that there are some things that you don't ever have to forgive. You can come to peace at it with it and say, let someone else forgive them. And it's really useful, and I'm deeply sorry that you're in this situation. That's what I want to say. It's very sad for me.
And both are a process. For me, forgiveness is, so when I was early in recovery, lots of resentments. Somebody said, you are letting that person live rent free in your head. And I hated that. And so what I had to do was forgive them, but it was really for me. I don't even think they even knew, or I don't think I ever talked to them about any of that. It was really the resentments and what I need to do for myself. It definitely is a process too, because like things that I thought I'd let go, like then could pop back up, and I had to work the process again. But being gentle with you, being kind, understanding that it's a process. It isn't going to be that magically one day, oh, poof, it's all gone. There'll be moments, but there'll also be, more sunshine than gray clouds. So I think, appreciate those moments, but then just go, I have the support. I'm going to lean into the support is so good. I'm so glad you've got the support. So
I want to add one thing to that about dealing with grief. Put away all the pictures of the two of you together. Put away all of the letters that were written to you. It's not, put it all in a box and put it in the garage or put it up on a shelf. It's not that you won't want to revisit those moments, but right now when you're in grief, it's just like a constant pain. It's like pulling on a scab, excuse my language. You don't need to see a picture of the two of you every time you walk in the living room. It's in your mind. So, what I say to friends, because we do, like, we revisit and we think about it, we obsess, and you're never going to get out of it.
Ruminate.
What a wonderful word. So the more you can get it out of your life, just bring a friend over and say, let's go through the house and take out some of the reminders of the relationship so that I don't have to think about it all the time. I don't run into them, and let's put them in a box, and let me give you the box and put it in the garage. That is one way to help you tolerate and manage grief. Concrete.
Next question. My husband has done everything he can to help me heal. He has been sober for almost 2 years, verified by polygraph. He leans in when I lean out. We have done 2 intensives and both in SA groups along with couples counseling, but I am still stuck. I have not forgiven, nor do I trust him. He's doing everything possible. What is a fair amount of time before calling it quits? Discovery was 11 months ago.
Well, Tammy, I want to ask you, so discovery, just to clarify for the group, discovery means I found something and I discovered what was going on. Disclosure is I'm in a formal therapeutic process going through what went on. So what I hear here from what I guess they're done
I'm
disclosure,
confused because it says he's been sober 2 years, but you didn't find out until 11 months ago. So, I mean, is that what you're reading too?
That's what it says.
Yeah.
But I think that's really not the question. And so, the reason I brought that up, and I think Tammy's responding, is it has to do with time. 11 months, when you just discovered 11 months ago, but you hadn't really started a process together, or if that's too soon. Because if I find out in November and then we finally get into some therapy, or I get some 12-step, or we all start working together in February, then it's a year from February. So yeah, they did a disclosure, I think is what they.
In August. Oh yeah. Oh, I lost you. Hopefully he comes back. Don't know what happened. A formal intensive discovery. No. So a formal intensive discovery was in August. So it's not a formal intensive discovery. It's a formal intensive disclosure. So right. That's what the confusion. Okay. So the disclosure was 11 months ago. That makes more sense.
So I'm just going to say something to you that I know, dog, you want to go. Do you mind if I let the dog out? Just take me a second. But I really want to say something about calling it quits and not being able to get past your anger and stuff. Okay. So it's actually fairly simple. And again, I was saying on the podcast earlier today that I really am a straight shooter, as you know, Tammy. So I will say things that I believe are true, whether they make you comfortable or not. In a therapy setting, I might be more gentle, but if you're asking me questions here, I'm going to be honest. That's my job. So let me answer this question in an honest way, except now it disappeared.
It's
Calling
in
it
the
quits.
answer. Yeah.
So this is my experience. Up to a year after formal disclosure, when my spouse is doing everything right, my addict, they're going to meetings, they're going to therapy, I really think they're sober. After about a year, if my anger continues, what happens is it becomes counterproductive, because now the addict is being the person that I want them to be. They are working on it. And I don't have to say, good for you, you're doing great. But to continue to feel rage or do tirades or go through everything they own then becomes pushing them away. So I think you have to decide if you want to be in this relationship or not. I think it's as simple as that. Is this something you want to fight for, or is this something you want to let go of? I don't know that it necessarily at this point has to do with they did this and I did that. And it's really more in here. It's really, you did this, but you're working on it. Now, I will say this, and I rarely say this, but this may have brought up issues for you that have to do with your past. Someone abandoned you, someone hurt you. And you're really holding on to that pain because it goes all the way back to the
Mm.
past. And that may be something that you're stuck in. And I don't mean to say that
Oh, I keep losing him.
sorry, Tammy, I keep dropping out. I think what happens is I squeeze my earbud maybe, and then
Stop it.
I don't
Okay,
know,
finish your
it itches.
sentence.
You think I remember what I was saying? I think that, I don't want any spouse to feel like your anger has anything to do with your past. That's why I wrote codependence. You have every right to be angry because of what you're going through. But when you're both working on it, and you're really sincere and you're doing your best and you're getting the 2 years, it may well be that it is time to end the relationship, or you're going to have to do some work on yourself, because that's when it gets to he's doing everything he can. And I think I have been, but I still have these feelings. I don't know why you still have them. I agree with you. It isn't healthy for the relationship, especially for him if he's trying really hard and doing all the right stuff. So some relationships are not meant to work out. And I can't answer that for you. Only you can answer. Here's a really dumb question. Okay, this is a really dumb question. Do you love him? Do you want to spend the rest of your life with him? That's really the bottom line. And um, I was going to say something about that. I mean, even you spouses who are deeply hurt and deeply angry and deeply wounded, many of you, if we got to the bottom line, would be, I still love them. And every time I talk about this, I really believe this. So I want you guys to hear that if you're all 52 of you, the opposite of love is not hate. If you hate them, you are still passionately engaged. The opposite of love is indifference. If you really don't care what they do, if it really doesn't matter what, that is the opposite of love. And when someone has pulled away and no longer feels that intensity at either end, love, hate, and they haven't moved back to a comfortable place, it may well be that they are not going to continue. And Tammy, by the way, we've run into this with couples who, yes, they moved out for 8 months or a year, but now it's going on 2 years and they're still living separately. It's kind of the same thing. It's like, you're either in or you're not. And I certainly wouldn't want to leave him feeling like he needs to do one more thing if he's really doing all the right stuff. So, by the way, talk to him about it. Tell him I'm ambivalent. I don't know what to do. I want to move on, but I can't. I mean, this is the kind of communication that is important for you to do in order to promote wherever your relationship is going.
So a couple of things. Eddie Caparucci did a really good webinar on this recently. So it's on sexandrelationshiphealing.com. No, that one.
No, yes.
I'll get it right eventually. Under the resources, you'll see previously recorded, and he did a really good one about partners being stuck. So perhaps check that out. I think taking the temperature on where are you? If you're on the indifferent, if you leave, here's the only thing I'm going to say: if you leave, please do the work for you to heal so that you aren't carrying that forward into a future relationship. So please do what you need to do for you in or out of the relationship. So, because otherwise it's the baggage that gets dragged along, and 3 relationships later, it's still 100 pounds of garbage you're carrying. So,
And I want to add one more thing to that,
mhm.
Tammy. We got a lot of answers to this, is that uh, don't stay because you're afraid of what might happen if you don't. It's not fair to me if you're sitting around deciding, well, I'm not sure if I'll be with someone again, or do I want to go live with a grandkid, or whatever it is. You have to envision what you want for yourself, separate from whether we're going to stay together or not. If you're sitting around waiting for your life to begin, now that you've staying together or you're not, you need to begin your life now. And I'm sure you have a life, but I mean, start your interests, start your fun, start the things that you need to know that are good for you. I think it's a lot easier to look back. It's like retirement. If you do nothing but work, it's very hard to think about not working because you have nothing else in your life. I have a friend who is going to retirement, but he's really into ceramics. And he goes to the studio every day and he's turning pots, and he even said to me the other day, I never thought about retirement, but now that I'm sitting here with you, I can see myself moving into this thing that's really fun. And I thought, boy, I wish I had that, because it gives you a vision for who you might be outside of, and I don't care if it's work or the relationship, it's still about that's where I'm headed and not just about what I'm coming out of. So there's a little therapy trick for you.
Okay. Next question. Hello, Dr. Rob. I'm a PA and sober for almost 6 months. Yay. Mostly doing meetings from Seeking Integrity. How important is it to have a community of men to talk to and connect with, and to share not only recovery, but relationship issues, divorce groups, and so on? How do you know which groups are helpful and evidence-based? That's a lot of questions. Okay.
Yeah. Can we go through those one at a time?
Sure. How important is it to have a community of men to talk to and connect with, and to share not only recovery, but relationship issues, divorce groups, and so on? So to
Okay.
connect with, and for,
It is as important as having your heart beat. If your heart stops beating, you're not going to live. If you don't deeply engage in social and structured relationships with people who have similar issues for you, and not for a month or two, but for years and years and years, number one, it's not good for your relationship because you put all the emphasis on that to get your needs met. And it's not good if you're single, because part of what we need to learn in recovery is how to have meaningful, deep, non-sexual relationships. Sex is so easy to run to, but what it makes also easy is I don't have to talk to you. I don't have to get to know you. I don't have to fear you're going to leave me. I don't have to see if you like me or not, because we're just going to have sex. What is meaningful is trying out, exploring, and creating meaningful, deep relationships, especially with people who have the same issue as you do. So I don't know if Tammy would go that far, but I think if you want to stay in recovery, that being engaged in meaningful social support is like your heart beating or not. And well, that's one of the answers. Tammy, do you have a comment on that one?
I 100% agree. Like, there's no way I could have done this recovery thing without a whole bunch of people to show me and connect with me and give me their life experience. And it was about all the other stuff. So I mentioned it earlier. Stopping the behavior is the very basic. That's the first thing. That's the symptom. It's addressing all that other stuff. So yeah, like, I need to talk to people about, life and how do I do life, because that was what got me in trouble before. I didn't know how to do that. So getting the help to do that, from other people who are on the path, and they get me. I don't have to explain myself, normal quote unquote people, like, I think differently than them. It's challenging. So I mean, I can do that, but really just being grounded with other people in recovery that were trying just like me to do life differently was so important. Dr. Rob talked about his friend doing ceramics. When I first got into recovery, like, I had my little social group of people in recovery, and I lived in Michigan. We went cross country skiing. We went roller skating. We did stuff because my life was all focused on addiction before. I needed to learn how to do life and I had fun doing different things. And really, it was whatever we were doing was an activity, but really what it was connecting with other people in a meaningful way.
And I want to build on that briefly. You heard we were asked about attachment earlier. So I grew up learning to do it on my own. Don't ask anyone for help. Don't be vulnerable. Handle, all that. And one of the things I think is very important about going to these groups and organizations is that I'm forced to be a part of. I am forced to, I mean, I'm in this environment. People are going to talk to me. I'm going to talk to them. So that whole thing that addicts avoid about turning to others, leaning on others, this is a big part of it, is regaining the pieces that are missing. Now, I'm never going to go back and be four again and innately believe that others will be there for me. But imagine the home, well, I'll just say, I grew up in a home where if I said, hey, Dad, let me tell you what's going on with me at school, my father would say, oh, I'm sure that's interesting, but let me tell you about me. And so I learned there was no point in looking for validation because I was not going to get it. But when I go to a 12-step meeting and I say something interesting, fun, useful, part of recovery, people come up to me and they say, that was really interesting, or good for you, or let's go to coffee. It's the exact opposite experience that I grew up with. And while it won't change my brain entirely, it does become more and more reliable in my brain that I can turn to people and they are going to be there. And I have this bunch of people that I know are safe and I know I can turn to. And really, it is part of the brain healing, in my opinion. The more you show up and engage, the more likely to show up and engage. So that's question number one.
The next question is, how do you know which groups are helpful and evidence-based? So try different groups and evidence-based. I read a study, and it was probably a year or two ago, about 12-step, and like, and it's the most effective, probably because it's the most available. It's got a proven track record, but you can't, well, you can, but I always encourage people to go to multiple meetings, and like every 12-step group, even if it's AA, every location has a personality. So you go until you find the personalities that you like. And then, like I had to go find it. I moved, to Arizona. I had to go find a home group, and I went to a bunch of them. And it's kind of like dating. You try a bunch of them and you go, I like this one. And so I kept coming back. And so, and so you have to keep trying. But as far as helpful, the ones it's like exercise, which form of exercise is the most beneficial? The one you keep doing.
Right. Go for a walk. I did want to say something, Tammy, and I know we've talked about this. How long have you been in alcohol and drug recovery? 10 years, 20 years, a bunch of years, more than 10?
Do you really
More
want me
than
to
10?
say?
No,
Yeah,
I mean, not if
okay.
you feel embarrassed.
Well,
but
no, okay. I just had my recovery birthday, and I probably, 41 years. I just got my,
okay.
41
So let me
years.
say something. Tammy's been doing this for 41 years. And yet, and I hope she doesn't mind my saying this, sometimes she has a bad day or a bad week. And I have been on the phone or talking to her like this, where she said, I think I need to go to a meeting just to get my head clear, and this is 41 years later. I don't know that Tammy goes 4 days a week, but
No,
she knows that
not
that's the
anymore.
place where,
Yeah.
and I have to say, when I go to a meeting now, after all these years, I don't necessarily even listen to everything. I feel this sense of meditation and peace just by showing up there, because it's such a habit to go to that place to be at peace. So someone said, I do want to read this. Find your group, find out where you belong. It applies to spouses too. Find people who lift you up, validate you. All groups are not equal. And I'll say one more thing about that. You have to go for a while. Tammy said, go to this one, go to that one. She's right, but not just once. Because I will go to a
Right.
12-step meeting, and I guarantee you, I will find the people who do the worst stuff that I would never think of doing, that really hurt people sexually. And I'll think, oh, I'm not like them, so I don't belong here. You have to look for the people who are similar to you and are struggling with the same things as you to begin to feel like you belong. And in order to do that, you have to go, they say, 6 or more times. So you got to go to a single meeting, maybe if you can tolerate it, if you feel comfortable, a bunch of times. And guess what? You're going to start knowing people, and they're going to start, but anyway, I
And
digress.
I think the details are details. I listen to, can I relate to that person's pain? Can I relate to that person's, like, they're struggling with whatever, like, the sorrow, the anger, the whatever. Can I relate to that? Because the details of what happened or whatever, I won't line up exactly like that, but I can relate on the feeling level. And if I can start relating on the feeling level, guess what? I can connect with that person. So.
Yeah, I want to say something about that. That's one of the reasons the treatment works so well. I mean, I want to remind you, we do run a treatment center. It's called Seeking Integrity. It's out here in California. We treat male sex addicts and men who have combined sex and drug issues. Why did I bring that up, Tammy? I'm getting old. I forgot that up. But anyway, by the way,
Connecting with people. Yeah.
hi to the guys who
And
are at
we're
the
going to,
treatment center.
yes,
I'll
we're
see you
going to answer
tomorrow.
one more question. Okay. All right. Is it common for porn sex addicts to want sex with their spouse in places such as outside or while out of town, in places where others are in the same room or house, etc.?
Well, I think it's common for sex addicts to do all kinds of things that increase the intensity, increase the chance of getting in trouble or caught, because that increases the intensity. But I think, what I hear is exhibitionism. That's what I hear. Now,
That's what
I
I
used to
wanted
have
you to
sex in
answer on.
public places because that was where I picked people up and we would go hide in a corner and have sex. That was, 30 years ago in a different world. But I wasn't seeking to be seen outside having sex. I was going to the places where I knew people were to have sex. So, and I didn't want to go inside with them. I just want to have sex and leave. So, but it wasn't that I wanted to go outside and be seen or risk being seen. And because that feels very exhibitionistic and it would make me very uncomfortable if someone were pulling me into that. So I don't know whether that, I don't know about the sex addiction piece, but that's more of a sexual problem. And why is it a problem? Because you can get arrested for it. That's how I know it's a problem. So I would be concerned that my spouse wants to put us in dangerous or problematic situations in order to enjoy sex. Yes, men like stimulation. We like new stimulation. However, that kind of stimulation is not only not good for you, but it's illegal. And I would probably stop at that point.
Thank
So
you.
thank you, Tammy. I love your new background.
Isn't it great?
And
Yes, I'm going to share
tell
that.
me which
We're gonna-
way is seeking integrity. Just tell me which way is seeking integrity without looking.
I have
Yes. Yes.
there.
All
It's
right.
reversed for me it's a
I
mirror
understand
image. So
completely.
that's why I'm like, anyway. So
You
thank you,
guys have a
everybody.
wonderful evening.
Yes.
Tammy, thank you for doing this together. By the way, last week was not as much fun because you weren't here. And I said it a bunch of times. I was like,
Well,
this isn't
thank
as
you.
much
So
fun
I know
with
I
Tammy
missed
not
out.
here.
I was on a plane, but I'm here.
Well,
I'm
you were
grateful to
seeing
be
people
back.
you
So
love.
I
So
was.
you
I
get
had a
credit
great
for
time.
that.
So yes, yeah. So
Okay.
all right.
See you
Bye,
guys later.
everybody.
Be at
Thanks.
peace.